Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I
can hear
think, I'm not sure if,
Commissioner Garrison and Commissioner Rao, can you hear us now?
yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to get started. I'd like to
Um,
call-
Jessica, we just can't see you, so it's going to be blind.
Okay. They're going to try and fix this while the meeting is going, but we're going to get started. So just listen and hopefully we will appear. I'd like to call this meeting of the Burlington Police Commission to order on June 27, 2023 at approximately 6:08. I'd like the minutes to reflect that we have a quorum present with Commissioner Cox, Keefe, Seguino, and Oski present, and Commissioner Rao and Garrison present remotely. The next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt the agenda. May I have a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 7.1 titled Commissioner Seguino's document presented to the Joint Charter Change and Public Safety Committee. The item is duplicative and will be covered under agenda 5.7.
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Keefe, seconded by Commissioner Rao. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Moved by Commissioner Keefe, seconded by Commissioner Cox. Any objections? The agenda is adopted. The next item is the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Police Commission meeting on Tuesday, May 23rd?
Motion for that?
Moved by Commissioner Keefe.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Cox. Any discussion or amendments? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I was not present, so I must
Okay,
abstain.
Commissioner Keefe is not voting. He was not present. The minutes are adopted. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the commission? Please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Great. Please try and limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. I'll start with you. Yes, please sit at and turn on the microphone. And tell us your name when you start and where you live. Thank you.
Good evening, Chief Murad. Congratulations on your appointment.
Can you speak into the microphone and push the button until the green light comes on so we can all hear what important things you're going to tell us?
Congratulations, Chief Murad. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Murad or Murad? Murad. Congratulations on your regrettably belated appointment by the City Council. And good evening, Commissioners. Just want to speak on a very brief...
Would you tell us your name?
Dale Geduldig. I just wanted to speak on a very brief matter. I most likely will not need my allotted 3 minutes. Wish to speak about a problem which I anticipate effective January 1 next year here in Burlington. Now, I happen to be a recent transplant from New York City. I came here during the COVID period, a little over 3 years ago. Incidentally, I understand the chief is served as on the NYPD, and coincidentally, he served in the 3-4 precinct in Upper Manhattan, Washington Heights, where I've been residing almost all my life. The point I wish to make is an anticipation of an upcoming problem, and that has to do with the fact that the Green Mountain Transit Bus Company, perhaps I misstated its precise name, will start charging a fare next year. And that fare has been in moratorium for several years on account of the COVID crisis. And the problem I anticipate relates to my experiences in New York City. The problem has to do with, I anticipate, is fare evasion. I understand, and it was published in the New York Times, that in City of New York, which also, at least on the buses, suspended the collection of fares. 38% of the riders are currently evading the fare. And it's gotten to the point, and this is as of last month, I mean, this article and my observations, it's gotten to the point where the bus drivers will not confront the fare evaders who enter through the back of the bus, the front of the bus, and they're not challenged. So since Burlington, in a way, is a microcosm of New York City and every other big city, when the fare resumes, I anticipate the possibility that there may be people who are accustomed not to paying the fare for several years will try to evade the fare, and I'm just wondering how that can be enforced. Now, logistically, if there are some 11 buses in the city of Burlington at any given time, you cannot allot 11 police officers to accompany the drivers. So my comment is that I hope I'm not being unduly pessimistic, but people who are accustomed not to paying the fare, especially among the younger cohorts, may challenge, not accustomed in recent years, may decide to test out whether or not the city is serious about collecting a bus fare. And if I were a bus driver, I would not want to get into the face of people who are trying to get on for free. So I just wonder, I hope I'm not unduly concerned, but I just want to prepare the city for that possibility. As a matter of fact, if I belonged to the bus drivers union, with all the other responsibilities drivers have, I would have attended and I did not attend that personally, but I would be in favor of not assuming that task, that responsibility, which when one is confronting fare evaders, the confrontation can become very nasty and unpleasant. And I see the possibility that the new policy may very well be unenforceable. As I said before, you cannot have with a limited police force here, you cannot assign a police officer to every bus. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. Police Chief, thank you for being here, of course, and congratulations. As been said before, your belated nomination to the post. I feel like you've been the
Could you
chief.
just state your name for the record?
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Romeo von Herman. I am a Ward 8 resident. I work for Greenmount Transit. That was just being spoken about. And certainly I concur what my fellow resident is stating. But I just wanted to take a moment to certainly congratulate the chief for a well-earned position and the long trek you've taken to where you are today. I wanted to say this past when you were being nominated, but I know I wanted to wait until the dust has settled down before I had my say in public. I know this is a very thankless job to have, but at the same time, it's a very vital job to have, and this also goes for the entire commission as well. Going to the other key issues that I'm here for is the recruitment level at the department, and I'm noticing something very special that is happening, which I think that you are responsible for that happening at the department, which is diversifying the department with respect to the folks that are out there responding to issues. Every week at the transit center, I'm seeing brand new faces coming in from all aspects of backgrounds and genders and you name it and so on and so forth. And I did say to myself that I really like what you are doing with respect to having an equitable force that is reflective of the community. And I'm noticing there's a lot of the level of communication between us, the community, and department members have become much more cohesive and very accepting. I'm not seeing the level of, from at least what has been said in the past, like aggression or forceful response of communications with community members, but much more compassionate communications, which genuinely that I do applaud what you're doing with respect to that. And even today, I had an interaction with one of the officers who came to the transit center. It was a very pleasant conversation that we had. The officers was very genuinely wanted to know how we're doing, how is everything going, is there anything that that can be done, and if anything is happening, just to keep the officers in mind, and if we needed anything, that they will respond in timely manner. Which I think that exchange in itself gave me much more assurance that I have something to fall back on as somebody who basically manages a transit center here in the city. So another thing that I'm super excited about is knowing that actually the 4 folks that actually just graduated, I'm familiar with at least a couple of them personally. So it was good to see their names on the paper and know that, hey, you know what, people that I know personally are actually graduating from the academy, and that later on if they show up, that, I feel comfortable knowing that they're there to help me out, and, I don't feel like a stranger to them. So in any event, just want to show my gratitude. I know it's not an easy job to have, and I know you've taken a lot of heat from the public, and as you should. This is a job when you do public service. It comes with a lot of ups and downs, and you will be asked tough questions, and we're not looking somebody who is a yes man to be in that post, and you have definitely prove yourself that you will take a challenge as it comes, and so I'm glad that you accept the challenge from us directly from the community. So long story short, thank you for your service. Thank you for savers as well, the commission, and I look forward to remain productive member of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. The next item on the agenda is the chief's report, and before I turn it over to Chief Murad, just to pile on, I'd like to also congratulate the chief on his appointment and thank him for his continued service to the people of Burlington.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you for that, and also for the opportunity to deliver the report. It was sent out, I believe, last week, and it was we've posted it publicly today. I arrived this morning after I think a 9.5-hour flight from vacation. So flew into Logan and drove back here, and I'm glad that this is here. And if I doze at any point in this meeting, please forgive me. But I'm excited to be able to talk about this. So here's our first page. Over the past, since our last meeting with the Police Commission, we had the marathon. Marathon's a wonderful event. Really happy to be a part of that and have a lead role in that. Obviously, Run Vermont does all the hard work, and they're tremendous volunteers. But we were able to take our resources and cover a marathon that's changed a little bit. It's a smaller event than it has been in the past. And that's partly because of diminished signups, but also a component of it is our ability to field as many officers as we have had in the past, and that we're just not as able to do that. But it's still a terrific event, and I really love the opportunity to get it out there with the public. This is a note about that confirmation that several of you have mentioned. The mayor convened a tremendous number of supportive folks from the community that were there for that announcement event. I'm very proud that, my father is there in the light blue shirt in the front row. My wife is standing next to him in the darker blue shirt. Former Mayor Clavel as well, but so many others who were in that audience, and I'm really proud to have made connections with all those people over the past 3 years of being in the role. And then the letter next to it is one that I sent out internally the day after the confirmation, which happened about a week or so after this, or 2 weeks after this photo was taken. The next slide, thank you. The Academy graduation, and Romeo mentioned some of this in public comment. There are familiar faces in this group. We had a total of 6 who were hired in February. One of those 6 did not make it through the Academy. One of those 6 was injured during the Academy and will rejoin the next class when it begins in August. He'll actually join it when he was injured, so he'll join it in progress sometime in September. But the 4 who did make it through until the final graduation include 2 members who were previously community service officers or CSOs, and so they are familiar faces here in Burlington. They were out doing CSO work for the previous year plus. Another young man, also a familiar face here in Burlington. He's a graduate of BHS, a graduate of Champlain College. In fact, his final semester at Champlain was also conducted as his academy training. So the college allowed that. That's him getting a hug down in the lower right corner. Babette Garung is from a New American community here in Burlington, and our interviews during his background process were uniform, and this is one of the nicest guys there is, and really happy to have him as a new member of the department. And then not a familiar face in the city, but someone whom I think is going to be a terrific police officer and was in fact the president of the academy class is there in the upper right, and he is a person. Kim Lockerbie has a long history in the military, was an exemplary police recruit down at the academy, and is already showing a solid head in the field. They will be on field training through September/October. After the 16 weeks of the academy, we give them 580 hours of additional instruction as field training. That's a phased process. They have to be with a trained officer, a fully trained, certified level 3 police officer who acts as their field training officer. We call the whole program FTO, which gets kind of confusing because the field training officer, who is the instructor, is an FTO. The program is the FTO program, and they are said to be in their FTO. We use the acronym sort of across the board for all of it, but they will initially be with another officer. Towards the end of the process, that other officer goes into plain clothes and basically is completely hands-off, and they really run each interaction on every call for service that they attend. But it is a long process. It's the longest in the state that we know of, and it's very thorough. So we will consider them. We don't consider them solo effective officers at this point. We will not consider them solo effective officers until late September, early October. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the sworn officer headcount total. We are currently at 64, but I just signed off on 2 new applicants whom I'm hopeful will be joining us for the August Academy. There's a 3rd applicant I know of for the August Academy. I hope to have 4, possibly 5, and we have a couple of laterals who are interested in the department as well. So we're working hard on getting those numbers up. This is where we are for available. So that 57 available does not include those 4 officers who are on FTO. So they're out there, but because they can't act on their own and really have to be shadowed at all times by another officer, we don't consider them to be effective alone. The 64 is broken down in the pie chart that you see there, and we currently have 26 officers on patrol. Well, when I say currently, I mean as of the 15th, when this was produced. I did this just before I left. This was the last thing I think I sent to Shannon before I left for vacation. We talk about these each month, of course, as well. We currently have 6 CSOs, 5 CSLs. One of those officers is currently a CSL. So we're taking an officer who was a street outreach worker, moved to being a CSL, and now is going to move towards being a police officer. I personally think that's a terrific progress, right? I think that it shows that we're the kinds of people that we're bringing into the department. And let's be honest, we need officers like Officer Lockerbie as well, somebody with deep military experience who's got certain kinds of skill sets that come not only from the military, but oftentimes at a different level from the military. But we also want folks like this candidate who's been a street outreach worker, is currently a community support liaison, and will be a police officer. And one of our officers right now is also a former street outreach worker who is one of our 2 marketplace officers. We have 2 officers who are assigned to the marketplace in City Hall Park, one of whom used to be a street outreach worker. Next slide, please. We've posted some new videos online. This is tremendous work done by Sarah Team Hernandez and Shan Chan Chen. They have put together some terrific videos about our several different parts of the department. Our CSL program, and now one about our ERU. The ERU stands for the Emergency Response Unit. None of these officers is specifically tasked to this unit. We don't have the headcount for that, and frankly, even if we were back at a higher staffing level, we wouldn't have a permanently staffed emergency response unit. We're just not a big enough department for that. But we did formerly have an emergency response officer, who was an officer whose job it was to maintain the equipment, to maintain training, to make certain that we were following best practices and staying abreast of the newest kinds of technologies, et cetera, that are available for this. They have been doing, these are training pictures. They were clearing in the picture, the largest picture there on the left, they were clearing the old YMCA, which unfortunately we've had to do a couple times now because people have been breaking into it. This is the revised priority response plan. I try to include this in every report. Next, please. Thank you. And this is incident volume as of June 15th. So year to date as of June 15th. You'll see that, we're way up this year compared to the previous 2 years, but we're back in line with where we were before the pandemic in 2019. And unfortunately, of course, we're facing that with 50% fewer police officers on the road. As you saw on that previous slide, we have 26 officers who are non-supervisory officers who are dedicated to patrol. As recently as 2018, we had 52 non-supervisory officers dedicated to patrol. So we are down by half. But we've created these other roles, including community support officers, community service officers. We are using the priority response plan, stacking a number of calls, directing a number of calls to online reporting. Together, those are about 25%. And then about another 25% go to either CSOs or CSLs. And so, yes, we are facing an increased workload with 50% fewer officers, but we also are, those 50% calls that match the 50% missing officers are either being handled by new resources or they're being stacked or sent to online reporting. These are the same categories that we do each month, and where they are, you'll see there that overdose is not improving at all. It's still shockingly high. I don't have a graphic for it this month. As I said, I put this together, I think, on the 16th is the day I left, which is when these numbers would solidify because they go through the 15th. So I couldn't run this year's numbers until the end of the 15th. And I didn't get the graphics from our data analyst. I wasn't able to include those in the graphic chart. But it would show you what we've seen in previous charts, which is something that's really shocking and troubling, particularly around overdose. Next, please. A reminder, as always, that we are hiring, that we're working hard to try to rebuild officers, but also to get aboard new CSOs, CSLs, and still we're working on rebuilding dispatch as well. So the department as a whole is working on that. And, you know, we remain one of the best compensated agencies in the region. I think we also have, you know, one of the best mandates in the region. I think this is a terrific city to serve. I think people who come here get the kind of experience that you really can't get in any other agency in Vermont. And the more we rebuild and regrow, the more we can start to have some of the specialty roles that we've had in the past and have those available for career opportunity as well. And that's what I got.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Do commissioners have any questions for the chief? Commissioner Seguino.
Hi, Chief Murad. Welcome back from vacation.
Thank
You
you.
look very well rested. I wanted to share with you a question that I had from a constituent to see, I'm not sure that I was able to respond to it adequately. He made the point that there are, I'm going to read a little bit from his note, there are numerous residences in Burlington where drugs are being sold, and there's concern about what the police are doing about it. And he mentions that looking at the city website, he sees that drug dealing is a low priority crime for the police department. And he asked, is it true that the police are not arresting any drug dealers? My understanding is that it takes quite a bit of time for detectives to build a case when there is a drug house. And so that's what may look like inaction, but in fact, there is work going on behind the scenes. And I just wondered if I have that correct, or if you could add or expand on that in any way.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to address that. You know, previously, gosh, I guess it would probably be about a year and a half ago now, then Sergeant Mike Beliveau, who was running the drug unit, came and talked to the commission, and it might be good to have that happen again. Sergeant Beliveau is now a lieutenant. He's in charge of the Detective Bureau as a whole, but we have another Sergeant, Phil Tremblay, who's in charge of the drug unit. Yes, the gist of what you had there is absolutely accurate, Commissioner. We do know that there are places where drugs are being sold in the city, obviously. The overdose rate is proof that there is drug use in the city and drug sales in the city. We do take drug tips. Those tips have gone up quite a bit over the last 3 years. The tip hotline is the very first button, I believe, on the Burlington Police Department homepage, where you can make a tip about anything, any kind of drug activity that you observe. With regard to drug activity, the bulk of our anti-narcotics work is oriented at sellers and somewhat significant sellers, people who are moving large amounts of product. That does take a lot of work. It includes, you know, none of this is trade craft secret. You can watch, you know, HBO's The Wire from the very early 2000s and learn what a lot of this is. It's a lot of it involves either working with confidential informants or working with undercover officers or doing wiretaps or some combination of all three. Ultimately, you have to be able to prove that you purchased narcotics from person X in order to arrest person X and get a search warrant for person X's house or location. And that can be very challenging. Person X is oftentimes very unwilling to sell narcotics to people that person X doesn't know. Person X may have multiple people who are involved in the sale. One person handles the drugs, one person handles the money, one person handles the request that comes across in the first place. So there are lots of ways that make that challenging. We do not do street enforcement narcotics work for the most part. We did a little bit at the very beginning of the summer when we were attempting to set a new baseline for City Hall Park. But the fact is that both our community and law enforcement in general don't feel that that street narcotics work that the juice is worth the squeeze, as it were. You have open air, when there's open air drug dealing, that is something that you have to address and figure out how to deal with. But location drug dealing is generally addressed through long-term narcotics operations. And the fact of the matter is that based on the volume of narcotics that is out there, none of this is about actually getting a handle on the drug volume itself. This is about addressing quality of life issues that come to blight neighborhoods. A single residence on a block can really ruin the quality of life for that block, whether it is people coming to the doors in various states of need to feed their substance use disorder, and causing discomfort and sometimes ancillary crime in the neighborhood, break-ins, car larcenies, et cetera. The traffic that comes back and forth, vehicle traffic, et cetera. The fact that sometimes these locations are not well kept. When you are, if you are dealing drugs out of a location, making certain that you are mowing the front lawn isn't necessarily your highest priority. And while that is, I don't mean to be flippant about that, it is something that can affect a neighborhood, right? And it's not mowing the lawn, of course. It's the fact that you've got people that are coming in and coming out. It makes streets feel unsafe for children to play. It makes people not, to question what is happening to my home, how do I feel in my own neighborhood. So oftentimes our work on these is really about addressing that quality of life issue, attempting to make an arrest or execute a search warrant that essentially shuts that location down for some period of time at least, and buys a breather for the other people in the neighborhood. Is that going to have a drastic impact on the volume of drugs in the city? No, it is not. Nor is it really going to have a huge impact on use. In fact, there's some recent studies out that say that use and overdose actually increase after large drug busts. That's super early work. That's a study that only recently came out, and there's only one of its kind at this moment, but it exists as a theory out there. Instead, what I see the value of for our narcotics work is recognizing that certain locations can be real problems for a neighborhood. And the better we can address those, the better we can make the quality of life of our neighbors. That said, not infrequently we make arrests and the person is out, sometimes more quickly than the officers are done with their paperwork. That person gets released. That person may go back to that same residence. Eviction is not a police process, and it's a lengthy one. The dent that we make if we happen to make a seizure on a day when product has just come into the location, even that isn't really a big dent necessarily. And so sometimes the work that we do doesn't have it has an impact that is short-lived, and neighbors notice that and can grow frustrated by that. And we'll have to take another bite at an apple. But we currently have, I think, we have one full-time non-supervisory detective in the drug unit at the moment. No, I'm sorry, we have two. We have two non-supervisory detectives in the drug unit right now. That's smaller than it has been in the past. They're doing really good work to try to stay on top of all these drug tips, but there are more than there have been in quite some time. So it is something of an uphill battle.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Cox?
Thank you. Congratulations. I had just two sort of minor questions or quick questions. One is for people that are veterans, it's very difficult to get the sorts of supports that would be useful. I think if people are houseless or struggling with mental health issues and that sort of thing. In Long Beach, California, they have a complete street outreach team that's all veterans. And so, because they have a very large veteran population. And it tends to work really well because people also are suspicious of the VA for various reasons. And so, I don't think our population of veterans is as large as Long Beach, California's is, but I think that it might be useful if you could talk to your folks about seeing if one of the hires in the near future could be a veteran for either street outreach or CSLs that would be in a non-uniformed officer position, but that could give supports and be able to talk to somebody veteran to veteran. So that's one thing. The other thing I was thinking about is on your ValCore numbers. There's been some research regarding domestic violence incidents and how many of those involve actually underlying the incident is a mental health issue, either by the perpetrator or by the victim or both. And there was one study done, I think in Australia, where they actually dug down into like every report and did like word searches and stuff. And it turned out it was something like 80% of DV cases had a mental health component. And certainly if a person's a victim of DV, then they'll have trauma and that sort of mental health impacts from the event itself. But I was wondering, because on your ValCore, on your chart, like mental health issues is one column, DV is one column, but I was sort of interested to know if I could maybe sit with your numbers person and kind of play around with some of these different statistics that we can get from scientific studies that take it to the next step in terms of analyzing the type of case and what that means in terms of for example, the need for mental health supports.
Yeah, no, that's a terrific suggestion. So the mental health, to deal with the second first, mental health issue is a call for service that is only about the mental health component. There's a checkbox for mental health that could be checked for any incident. It could be a car theft incident or a domestic violence incident or a retail theft incident, and mental health could be checked on that if the officer sort of believes that mental health is clearly a component. Our DVPO and our domestic violence victim advocate are both in the CAPE unit, so they both sit with our CAPE unit, and so that crossover, I'm hopeful is happening. I mean, certainly when we have a domestic violence incident that has a victim who has either trauma or has mental health that may be preceded or is stemming from the domestic violence, that becomes a component of the work that the DVPO and the domestic violence victim advocate do. And they work to address that, to find appropriate resources, et cetera. So, yeah, I think that is, I think that certainly the data analyst would be interested to talk with you about how to do that and how to sort of mine some of those things. But the easiest thing would be to go to the checkbox and say, how many of these domestic violence incidents have that checkbox as well? And I don't know for sure how high it will be. Part of the issue is the fact that, officers, their threshold for acknowledging that something has a mental health component or not is going to be a little bit higher than, for example, certainly a mental health care worker, but also, for that matter, than a statistician might want. A statistician might want it to be a little bit more, to really get into the narrow sort of definitions of it. But the officer needs to really be able to say, this person who committed retail theft was clearly exhibiting a mental health break as well, or mental health issues. I mean, on some level, any crime may have a mental health component. It is not quote unquote, in a statistical sense, normal to commit crime, nor is it in a statistical sense, normal to have a substance use issue. Substance use itself is often a mask for mental health, and vice versa, right? So the crossover there, I mean, on some level, we could call every single overdose a mental health issue as well. We're certainly not there as a police department. I don't believe the science is there for lay people or officers, for that matter, to sort of make that distinction, even though I think that is a direction that medicine is increasingly thinking about. But it's taken us a long time as a society to acknowledge that substance use is, in fact, a disease and not a moral failing. And so getting to the point where we also say it's not only is it that, but it's also a form of a mental health issue as well. I don't think, we're on that road, so we'll see.
I think in part, it's like my concerns are born out of, for example, the announcement regarding the cuts to the Howard Center programs.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me that would be going in the wrong direction in terms of just wanting to have more supports community-wide. And
Yeah.
so I think, maybe I could send a note to Shannon and ask if I could meet with your data person.
Yeah.
And just kind of play around with some of the ideas. That would be perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
On the veteran issue?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner. I apologize. Veteran, yeah, obviously, we hire veterans all the time for police officers. I don't believe that we currently have any who are. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do have a veteran who's a CSO, and I don't believe we have any who are CSLs at the moment. Would love to try to get somebody in. As you point out, you know, our population of people requiring service is not heavily veteran. Certainly not the way you'd see in areas like Long Beach or San Diego or other cities, you know, Virginia, for example, Newport, where you have a large military presence. We don't see that here so much. That said, it would be great to have somebody with those skills on the CSL team, on the Community Support Liaison team.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions for Chief Murad on his report? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is commission business. The first item is some announcement from Commissioner Seguino.
Thank you, Commissioner Oski. As some of you may already know, I've decided to step down as co-chair of the Police Commission. It's been important work, and it's been an honor to help the commission become an independent body that provides civilian oversight. And it's been very rewarding work. That said, the extensive time commitment this has taken during this stage of the commission's evolution has really become unsustainable for me and has impinged on my ability to do my day job. And just to give you a sense of the workload, I would say in the last year I've spent between 20 and 25 hours a week doing commission work many weeks of the year. And I think it points to the broader fact that the changes in the commission and the role of the commission require a significant time commitment, both from co-chairs as well as commissioners. And in fact, for that reason, the commission made a request to the City Council and the Mayor's office to provide funding for a monitor, a staff position that exists on many civilian oversight bodies in the United States. Were we to have this position, it would substantially reduce the workload, not only of the co-chairs, but also of commissioners as well. I think it would also add a significant amount of expertise that the commission needs in terms of performing its role, and I think it would probably also lead to less turnover on the commission as the work becomes so much more intense than it has in the past. And so I'm hopeful that the City Council will respond positively to that request. So let me just say that I want to thank my fellow commissioners for their work over the past couple of years that I've been in this role and their support for me, to me in my role as co-chair, and I look forward to continuing to assist the commission to do its work in oversight. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Seguino, and thank you so much for all that you have done for this commission and for the City of Burlington. I know that your efforts will continue, and we look forward to keeping you close by. That brings us to the next agenda item, which is electing a co-chair.
I'm sorry. I have a few words
Okay.
in response to Commissioner Seguino. I want to thank her publicly as well. Thank you, Commissioner Seguino, for her tremendous service to the commission in being a strong and vocal advocate for fair and impartial policing. Borrowing Chief Murad's words, and I hope I don't misquote you, Chief, here, she has been instrumental in bringing speakers to the commission and has offered her time, advice, and guidance on both policy and personnel matters. Having said that, I look forward to continue to work with her as a distinguished expert in this field. So those are my few words. Thank you, Commissioner Seguino.
Thank you, Commissioner Rao. For the electing of a co-chair, are there any nominations? Commissioner Rao, do you have a nomination?
Yes, I nominate Commissioner Cox.
Commissioner Rao nominates Commissioner Cox to serve as co-chair. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll vote on the nomination of Commissioner Cox to serve as co-chair of the Burlington Police Commission. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, the ayes have it, and Commissioner Cox is elected as co-chair of the Burlington Police Commissioner. Congratulations, Commissioner Cox. The next agenda item is discussion and approval of DD03. I'm going to turn it over to Shannon Trammell from the BPD for any comments on the current draft, and then to commissioners for comment.
I've never joined you from this side of the table.
Welcome.
Thank you. So the revised directive that was posted and for review incorporated the suggested changes in indicators of bias policing, and I didn't know if there was any comment or updates.
Did you have a comment? I have a comment if you don't. Go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead. Commissioner Seguino?
Just to say that this version reflects the proposed edits that we made with regard to examples last time. And I believe a few edits by Commissioner Oski. And this was communicated with the rest of the commissioners, and there were no changes that I was aware of.
I do have a couple of outstanding issues. In Section 2, Policy Sub C, the list of, it says citizenship, immigration status, national origin, ethnicity, gender, gender identity, and sexual orientation should have no bearing on an individual's treatment in the BPD custody. That doesn't track with the list of characteristics under personal characteristics. So I know your comment here is, should we just say personal characteristics? And I say, yes, we should just say personal characteristics. But then personal characteristics should also include citizenship and immigration status. And then they will track. The one other additional characteristic that I think might be timely to include, and I probably needs a conversation, is housing status. There are laws that protect, not necessarily in Vermont, but in other places that protect against discrimination based on housing status. And it is, obviously a big issue right now. And there's no reason for people to be treated differently based on their housing status alone. So I had proposed that originally, and I'm wondering if commissioners have any comment about including that.
I think I looked at a lot of fair and impartial policing policies, and I haven't seen housing in any of those. That said, I think that it's an astute observation, and I think it makes sense to include it. And I would just add that, given that we don't have the final document here, that we might want a motion that empowers you to take the spirit of these additions and communicate those with the final language with Shannon.
Are there any other commissioner comments on that issue? I have one other comment after that. No? Okay. One other thing is under training and compliance, section 8 of the policy. This is minor, but it's important to me. Under B, it says additional trainings may include instruction on anti-bias, power and privilege, non-English speaking communities, undocumented communities, cultural competency, and victim witness services. After cultural competency, I would like to add gender and gender identity, mental illness, and victim and witness service. And I will send you, if commissioners are agreeable to those changes, I will send you a memo, and we can make a final approval at our next meeting, if that's okay.
Can I just make a formal
Yeah.
motion?
Yep.
So I can make a formal motion to, for the commission to approve the revised DD03 with 3 changes that Commissioner Oski will work with Shannon Trammell on. One of those related to personal characteristics, the second related to discrimination against the unhoused, and the third related to the trainings, the additional trainings that were noted.
Second.
Any, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you, then motion passes.
Thank you very
you.
much.
The
Thank you, Shannon.
The next item on the agenda, don't go far, is the discussion and approval of the CNA Matrix. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon for an update on the matrix, and then to commissioners for comment.
Sure, appreciate that. Mohammed is going to pull it up here on the screen for us, but there were several versions, and the committee that originally addressed it and started with the matrix came from the Public Safety and Joint, it was a large group, and the Police Commission, and going through all of the reports, the BPOA was involved, various organizations, and when we were trying to come up with items that were most important and that we wanted to track, the spreadsheet was kind of all over the place, and it was really hard to sort, and the suggestion came from the Public Safety Committee to maybe come up with a matrix that was easier for not only us to work from, but also for the public to follow along on what is currently in progress and what has been completed. And so, voila. I have spent a lot of time on this, and I would really appreciate some comment or feedback and maybe what is missing. If we can scroll over, I'm not sure on the bottom, Mohammed, if it does scroll over on this screen or not. It doesn't look like it does along the bottom.
If you go to,
scroll the columns over, does it let you do that or no?
you could also reduce the size up in the left corner from 100% to 75, and then you'll see a little bit more.
Perfect. And we'll make it super small on this screen. But so this is currently sorted by the recommendation number. There are a few with asterisks next to them that topics were included all in one recommendation, but it was clear that in that recommendation it was 2 topics. And so I kind of marked those with an asterisk so that we could separate them out and have them stand alone, for, another, maybe it was one the Police Commission would take up and the other recommendation BPD would take up, and so I've kind of split those. The other thing that I've incorporated all the way to the right is a column for updates for discussion as we move forward in these topics. And then I haven't yet completed, but I am going through those all various spreadsheets from before. There was a lot of work that went into those from those committee meetings, and I want to make sure that those original comments from those meetings are captured on here as well. So this is what we have. I've uploaded as a Google sheet so that it can be posted up on the website. Everyone can click on the link. It's just viewable only. You can sort in view only, and I will enable a few of those, if you wanted to sort by who is a responsible party for taking on certain recommendations, or if you wanted to sort by completion date or start date, those filter that will be available in the view only option as well. And the thought is then to link this on the transparency pages and the website so that anyone can find it and reference it in real time as to the items and their progress.
Thank you, it's fabulous. Are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Cox?
So thank you. I loved reading through this. I do have a couple questions, though. First of all, just like with my sense of the department's overall training and operational needs, and then this list, many of which also include training and operational, things on it. I'm wondering, is there some sort of overall list where you're able to look at all of the different trainings that are planned and all of the different changes that are planned to be able to sort of scope out how these things might happen?
Not at the moment. There are several recommendations regarding training that I hope that I will be starting to dig into that coming up. One of the recommendations and an observation of mine as well is that I would like to implement something similar to this spreadsheet regarding individual officers and the trainings that they have taken, so it isn't a little bit easier to see what's mandatory, what additional trainings, and to have it be a file similar to this so that you can see if an officer is overdue on a training, easy. You can see what additional trainings that they have taken. Currently, right now, we don't have a master list we have a master list, but not one that I believe that you're asking about.
Okay, my second question is this. There's a couple items that I was very interested in that weren't really on this list, and that's why I was sort of wondering, are they on some other list?
Sure.
And so one is officer wellness. And officer wellness is mentioned as an outfall of ABLE training, which is on the list, but apparently not started. But it's not listed as a separate standalone item. And I truly believe that officers encounter so many situations, and there's an accumulated trauma that occurs, and they have been working many hours overtime, and sometimes the overtime stresses can lead to poor decision-making, that sort of thing. And so you want officers to be as mentally and physically well as possible. I know that there's some really, one thing I was thinking about, for example, was like, I know a number of Navy SEALs. And Navy SEALs are very cool all the time, even when they're in very extreme situations. And so I did some research this weekend thinking about, I wonder what they do to stay that cool. I mean, they were very cool, but, and they were all like consistently cool people. But you sort of wonder, well, what do they do so that they're always able to make good decisions in the heat of the moment? And they do pretty standardly, they do this box breathing, and they do this a number of times per day, and they do meditation. And so you can be very cool like a Navy SEAL and do meditation. It all fits together. But I think that having sort of a toolkit for officer wellness, for people to find things that they can do, and I'm sure they do that now, but just so that they know that there's a lot of support coming from at least my chair,
Sure.
that I really want them to be well and making good decisions and, all of that. And so I'd just like to have that as something that we consider. And I've asked Chairman Ralph, we can maybe tackle this topic a little bit in the months upcoming and maybe educate ourselves as to some of the different police programs that are out there that seem to be working. I've seen one, and there may be others that I haven't seen yet, and so that would just be an ongoing topic for a while. The other one is on the list is the 40-hour CIT training, which is a huge commitment in terms of time because you need people to be away from the job and sort of immersed in this training for a week. And so, and that is the gold standard training. It's what people are recommending, and it's being implemented everywhere, and that's on the list. But I just don't see that being done in the near term because you just don't have enough people to do the job and do a 40-hour training in crisis intervention team training. But so one thing I wanted to maybe recommend as an alternative, but again, because it's not a CNA recommendation, I wasn't sure where this belongs. But they do have the 1 day, not the Team 2 training, which is a different deal, but they do have a 1 day mental health first aid training. And I know that the United Way Mental Health Initiative is working right now on training the trainers and getting more and more capability to train more people. And so I was wondering also, could we maybe either put like a sub-note on the matrix to either say, and in the meantime, while we're waiting to do the CIT training, we really would like to be able to start doing, as officers are available to go to a 1 day training, to have them go and do the 1 day training. It really helps to, and I'll mention this too when we talk about the use of force reports, but on the body cam video that I looked at, I watched it a few times when people were pretty agitated, either emotionally or mental health or emotional agitation, and then the officers trying to, they're the times that I'm thinking of in particular, the person's already in handcuffs, but not wanting to go into the patrol car. And so the officer's going, stop, stop, trying to get them to stop being agitated, but that really doesn't work. And it does seem that if every officer had a 1 day mental health training, then in those situations where a person is agitated, either emotionally or because of a mental health condition, pre-existing mental health condition, or just like in the moment, to be able to de-escalate in a humane way. Sure. And maybe avoid some of those situations where you're trying to stuff the person into the cruiser as they're struggling not to go into the cruiser. And so even if just for that one reason, I think it might be helpful. And then of course, there's other times it would be super helpful because inevitably police encounter people with mental health conditions. So those are my kind of comments about, thinking about overall scheduling and sort of what is my big overall picture of when all this different training is going to occur, and then maybe in some cases we could do some substitution or think about what is really important to the department, having the officers be safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Keefe?
Just first, I would just like maybe to point out to the public that on DD03, I think the first draft that we looked at addressed all of the CNA comments, but the continued discussion, I think, goes beyond it. So I think that's a very encouraging and important development. I think it's good for the public to be aware that we're not just meeting the recommendations, but looking to go beyond them. And I would like to thank you very much for your initiative to simplify the CNA Matrix. A lot of work and good thought has gone into it, but the document was becoming a bit overwhelming.
Yes.
And I think this is a great step towards improving transparency and making it more accessible to the public. And finally, I'd like to really thank you also for the initiative to document officers' training. You may be aware that back in September, the state auditor found that the Vermont Criminal Justice Council does not have the systems in place to verify that all officers have met training. So it does seem that it's falling on departments themselves, and I think it's a very important step in terms of compliance issues, but also maybe as perhaps an example for the other departments in the state that they may need to step up and take this on themselves. So again, I think these are very important and timely and needed advancements. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Seguino?
My comment has already been made.
Are there any other comments? This is listed on the agenda as requiring approval, so I guess we need to approve this matrix. Are we ready to approve the current CNA matrix dated June 27th, 2023?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Commissioner.
In a sense, my sense when I was looking at it is that in a way it's what I might think about as a living document, one that may be changed or altered or added to. And so I'm not really sure, like, if we approve it for this moment in time as it stands right this minute, but with the understanding that it is a living document and it will have changes and updates and so on as it goes along.
If I may, I was more looking for if there was things that you thought that maybe I had missed that you wanted to keep track of. I have hidden a couple of columns that had. So I am also using this document to keep ourselves on track, and so I've hidden some columns that are about productivity and like how many days a task is taken, and I certainly can unhide those, but for the for showing tonight, I chose to hide those. So as you noted, that absolutely we will be updating this as this goes, and this will be the document to go to and look for status updates. If there's at any time you feel like there's something we want to add to it or make notes on, I will put the note about the maybe looking into the 1 day. I'll put that kind of in the notes section so that we don't kind of boggle up what the CNA report recommended, and we'll just kind of use this as a going forward.
Great. It sounds like we're all generally in agreement that this is a great format and that you've done a fabulous job condensing and sorting the information, and we'll look forward to getting regular updates on how it's going. So I don't think that there's any official vote or approval, but that we generally are good with where you're going. So we look forward to updates.
Yes, perfect.
Great.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. The next item on the agenda is a discussion about BPD Cares position, and I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Cox, who requested that this item be added to the agenda.
Thank you. Commissioner Seguino had sent me the copies of the job descriptions for the three.
All commissioners got them.
Oh, all commissioners. Okay, thank you. All commissioners got the job descriptions for the three proposed. Can you stay like one more minute, Shannon, or is that? I guess not. Well, I just had some comments about the job positions for the BTV Cares, but before I do that, do you just have like a couple sentence update that you could give on your way out the door about where the department is on refining those and so on?
Sure. I actually am not really too much involved in that. I'm trying to keep the task on track and organize some meetings. I do know that there are some more upcoming meetings with the stakeholders, but unfortunately maybe the chief will know better about the actual job descriptions. That's not something that the actual job descriptions that I'm too involved in.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so anyway, the three job positions, and Commissioner Seguino had gotten the comments from a paramedic that she knows, and I concurred with his comments and then also had some of my own. And the comments really aren't large changes, but significant in terms of legal issues, exposure to liability, that sort of thing. And so, but one of the main parts is that one of the main recommendations that I made in an email and an amended, I edited, redlined the job position was for the paramedic. That they had it residing with the fire department, and I honestly believe that it should be with the rest of the team, not at the fire department. And part of that is because, and I've done some like research again, like for the past few days, trying to figure out like if this term of excited delirium that apparently only like first responders use, but nobody in the mental health community uses, and the use of ketamine to sue someone rather than just talking to them, which is the preferred method in the mental health community. And so I'm kind of, I guess, concerned about having like the paramedic be housed with the fire department. I think they need to be away from that culture unless the Burlington Fire Department has significantly changed the way that they think about these things. But I think it does make sense to have the paramedic residing together with the clinician and the care supervisor. so that they're all together as a unit. That's how Cahoots does it. That's how most places that follow the Cahoots model, you have them separated from the fire department, housed, a lot of times housed at the police department, although they're not police employees, but they're housed there. They carry police dispatch radios on them. So wherever they are, then they get like direct radio communication from police department to be dispatched.
So all of that is the plan. If the paramedics were to be, if we were to use paramedics or EMTAs or AEMTs, they'd be employees of the fire department because the fire department has the licensing, but they would not reside at the fire department. They would reside with the rest of the team, and they deploy from those locations. Insofar as, so that's the answer to that. And in all likelihood, we are also examining using nurse practitioners rather than paramedics or AEMTs. But a lot of this is in flux, and we're in conversations with a number of different stakeholders. We're sort of at a phase right now where I'm not really going to be able to discuss it in public session right now, but.
So let me ask this then. In your group of stakeholders, there is a phrase that people have gotten more used to thinking about, which is nothing about us without us. And this has become more well understood, I think, in recent years than it was previously. But could I just ask, how many people from the mental health community, actual peers, do you have in your group of stakeholders?
What do you mean by peers? Do you mean people who are experiencing mental health issues or who have lived experience with it? Or do you mean people who are, okay. The initial discussions around the system, around talking about this, were with members of the community who have extensive lived experience, either as people who've experienced it themselves or people who have family members. And that was integral to the very earliest stages of how we envisioned putting this together at all.
It may just be a badly worded job description, or the version I got may have just been badly worded, but it seemed to indicate, for example, that without the person's permission, the EMT/paramedic could decide to take that person to the emergency department without a court order. And
that can't be done.
Right, but that was in the job description, that the paramedic or EMT could decide to take the person to the emergency department. And also in the job description, the EMT or paramedic could decide to administer medication to the person without any mention of obtaining the person's permission. And so it may just be badly worded, but to make these decisions. And unfortunately, what I've seen in my research is that in many places, people believe paramedics and EMTs that are attached to fire departments should have that sort of decision-making. They should be able to give medication, take people to the emergency department. The person's not competent to make those sorts of decisions, and so they're going to overtake their will and give them the medication, and they're agitated, they're in this delirium, they're going to give them the medication, take them to the emergency department. And so I just wanted to, put out there that I wanted to make sure that the job descriptions, and I don't think it would be legal here, but that's what the job description said. And so I just wanted to maybe clarify the wording of the job description, or to make it more clear about what it is that's being talked about.
Yeah, I'll absolutely review the job description for that. I don't recall it saying that, but it shouldn't if it does. I think there were distinctions made between the qualified mental health care providers who can, in fact, go through the steps necessary to create an emergency evaluation order and take somebody to a hospital against his or her will. And with regard to medication issuance, if authorized by a physician at the hospital, that too can be done. You can give medication against the wishes of a patient in certain circumstances, but there are a lot of checks and obstacles that have to be overcome in order to make that something that happens. It's very, very rare. It's certainly not the preferred course of action at any given time. But I don't remember the job descriptions getting into nearly that kind of granularity, but I'll certainly review them.
So, and then the other thing is, I wasn't sure, and I told Shannon about this before she left, that there's actually a certification for what's called a community paramedic that involves, the certification itself involves specialized training in response to people in mental health or substance abuse overdose crisis. It's designed for exactly the sort of work that my understanding is of these positions. And so it is a fairly new certification, and so whoever designed these job descriptions may have not realized that this exists, but it would certainly be something that I think would be useful to say it really should be at the level of a paramedic, and it should be somebody that either has this extra certification or is agreeable to working towards that certification, getting that sort of level of training. So those are the main points.
Okay.
But you don't, so does do you think the commission is, should not be involved in discussing it until you're more, I would like to be involved in the discussion, I guess, if it's possible. If I'm just like one extra person that you don't need, then that's fine too. But I guess I just wanted to make sure that from what I read, I was going like, ooh, this doesn't sound good at all. And so I just wanted to make sure that the road it's going down is
I was under the impression that the chief of staff had shared all this with the commission and allowed for extensive input from the commission.
I think your comments are on the record now, and so they're noted. Commissioner Seguino?
And just for clarity on process, so these job descriptions were sent to all commissioners, and I received feedback from several commissioners. The job descriptions were sent to us by the mayor's office, and so we sent comments back to the mayor's office that reflect a lot of what Commissioner Cox said. I think if there's any additional comments that were not sent, that it would make sense for you to send them to Chief Murad, City Council President Paul, and the mayor's office, and they will take them into consideration as they further revise this.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda are the use of force reports. Are there any commissioners that would like to comment on the use of force reports from April? I have one comment if nobody else has anything. I have a question for the chief about an incident that I looked at, and I don't need your response tonight, but it was really just curious. It was incident 07493. It was an unlawful trespass at UVM MC on 421. And I was wondering why there wasn't a CSO or CSL response, because the arrestee seemed to be clearly in a mental health crisis, and she continued to refuse to leave. They arrested her and took her to the station to be booked, and then she was I think she was released on a citation, and the arrest was probably consistent with policy, but it seemed unnecessary. It seemed like a social worker is really who this person needed. And I'm just curious, maybe it was at night and maybe there wasn't a CSO on duty, but would love to understand how that decision was made. This arrest didn't seem to be much criminality involved, and didn't seem like a good productive use of BPD resources. I'll send you an email about it, but I would really love to understand how, when the call comes in, how that decision is made to send in this case, 2 uniformed officers versus a social worker, when this was clearly someone in mental distress.
Yeah, I'll absolutely look into it and get the specifics. We don't send CSLs to calls for service of that kind. They're not real-time crisis interventionists. Street outreach might, but not at the hospital. And then another issue is that if the hospital is calling to address a criminal situation, which is this person's trespassing and we want this person removed, the police are the only people that are going to go do that. We don't send, CSOs can't do that, nor can CSLs.
On the response plan, it looks like unlawful trespass could be either CSO or officer, but you're saying?
No, I think it can be priority 2 or priority, it's a priority 2. So it can be a priority 3, which is, we're not sending anybody to this right now because it's not, there's no life safety component, or it's a report from the past, and all you want is for us to come give you, you want to give us the paperwork that says you trespassed somebody yourself successfully, in which case that would be a priority 3. Or the person is here actively trespassing, and I feel unsafe having that person here. I feel unsafe issuing a trespass notice to this person. Can you come and stand by as I do so? And that would be a priority 1 if those other factors are there. But we'd never send a CSO or a CSL to do that.
Never.
No, they're not. I mean, neither of those positions can address crime.
And trespass is a crime.
Trespass is a crime.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Are there any other commissioner comments from use of force from April? So there were 19 use of force reports in May, and I know that Commissioner Seguino and Commissioner Garrison and likely Commissioner Comerford are not going to be able to look at reports in June and July, and I'm wondering if Commissioner Keefe and Cox and Rao are, and are you able to look at reports? So I'm just going to go ahead and say that Commissioner Keefe will do 1 through 4, Commissioner Rao will do 5 through 9, Commissioner Cox 10 through 14, and I'll do 15 through 19.
So we'd already done items off the May 1 through 15 report, and so some of those I actually wanted to comment on. So it's a May 1st through 15th report is what we had from last time.
Okay, I thought we looked at April last time.
We got April and the first half of May.
Okay,
May.
okay.
Commissioner,
So,
excuse me. Commissioner Oski.
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just trying to understand why certain commissioners couldn't look at.
I just was under the
Body
impression that you had requested that you didn't want to look at any. No? Okay.
No,
Okay,
Okay.
great, sorry. That was my misunderstanding.
no, that's fine.
So we may have less than I thought we had. I thought we had, so how many do we have left to do you know, Commissioner Cox?
We had assigned all through May 15th that were on the May 1st through May 15th list.
Okay,
So it was items 1 through 8.
okay.
Were
So
assigned
we
last
only have then 9 through, oh, we actually have a lot. 9 through 19. So that's 10, and there are 5, with Commissioner Garrison, there are 5 that are able to review film this month. So Commissioner Garrison, how about you take 9 and 10? Commissioner Keefe, 11 and 12. Commissioner Rao, 13 and 14. Commissioner Cox, 15 and 16. And I'll take 17, 18, and 19. Somehow we got 11, but that's because I don't know math.
Commissioner,
And you have some comments about, some additional comments about the May.
well, first of all, just with regard to assignments, Mohammed had also sent us the June 1 through 15 use of force report.
Okay, I didn't receive that, or I probably did receive it, but I don't have it.
So do you want to just maybe assign those via email?
Yeah, I'll do that by email, or I'll have Commissioner, you
Right.
and
I
Commissioner
can do
Rao
that by email because I haven't looked at these either. So I think both of us, Commissioner Cox and I, can sit down and do that. So,
Okay, thanks.
And also, I would just like to add, since we're on the topic of reviewing body cam, that um, I think we should have more, further discussion around viewing body cam, because unless we have a concern um, that maybe some wrongdoing has happened, or we've been asked by a body of people to look more into a body cam footage, I don't know if it's necessary for us to look at all the body cam. And, I stand to be corrected on that, but that was just, I think, maybe the confusion you got around me not wanting to look at body cam. I just wanted to add that for the record.
Okay, thanks.
I just have an addition. It's a question for Commissioner Garrison and everybody else. So Commissioner Garrison, do you have a thought how we can implement what you had in mind? Is there any specific way that we can do that? I mean, I feel like we're already doing this in a certain way. So I wonder if you had something very specific of how we would go about doing what you were suggesting.
I don't at this time, but I would like to have further conversation around it and see if that's something other commissioners are feeling the same way, or what their thoughts are. I just don't know if it's necessary for us to view every body cam, or if or is it something that we are assigned to do? So maybe further communication around that. We could probably find our way.
Commissioner Cox, did you have any additional comments?
Yes, so as I was looking at the ones that I was assigned, the first one, and on none, let me just add, on none of these do I have any problem with the amount of use or the way force was used. My comments are sort of peripheral to that, but I think still important. And I guess the first thing is a question to the commission, which is that, and I'm about to tell you and the public and Chief Murad of several instances that I think are worthy of commendation, of really fine work that the police officers have done, or in one case, a civilian reporting party did, that I think are worthy of commendation. Commissioner Rao has pointed out that I could just write down, and so I did, sort of a citation style, my commendation for each team or persons, if I could identify the persons who did really good work. And so, but I was thinking maybe we as a commission might want to consider doing like a commission commendation to police officers or civilian people who are involved in an incident. And it is sort of odd in a way, because there's stuff that happens every day that we don't see videos of. But many times, like people in the military know that a lot of times when you get a medal, it's because someone happened to see it, or someone happened to notice that you did that thing. And so it may just be that these are the things that we happen to notice because we're there anyway looking at the body cam videos. And so then we notice this thing and we say, wow, someone should say something good about that. Is there a way that we could maybe get a sense of the commission, if the commission would like to vote on it? If someone like, so like if I said what my citation was, described the incident, described what happened, and then we could vote on whether or not to do a commission commendation for the person or team?
I think we could discuss that. That seemed like that might be something we could do in writing, and each commissioner could probably issue their own commendations. I'm not sure it needs to be something that we all would necessarily vote on, because we're all not going to watch all the video, but I agree that there are a number of body cam videos that I've watched that are really commendable, and we only point out the times when we have questions or concerns, when we don't spend the time pointing out the times when things are going really well. And so it's a nice idea.
So would it be okay with you if I just take 5 minutes right now? No, go ahead.
Under the agenda, we have commendations later on in the agenda.
Okay, so may I do that on the accommodation section then? May I
No, no,
That's what I
that was a question that Commissioner Cox asked me, and I really did not have an answer to that, because that's not what we had ever done, which is what is the distinction between commendations from the public or commendations from the commission or commission member, right? I am completely comfortable if one of the commissioners wants to have a commendation which is within the commendation, and I just wanted to have that as a public discussion. I personally am quite comfortable with that. So those are my preliminary thoughts.
Any other commissioners have thoughts about it? Okay, for tonight, let's take it up under commendations, which is coming up on the agenda. Thanks. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of the Commission's recommendations to the Joint Charter Change Public Safety Committee on the future roles and responsibility of the Police Commission. And I want to note that the minutes from the Joint Charter Change Public Safety Committee meeting from May 30th indicate that the report that Commissioner Seguino submitted is in their packet, and the report, but I did not see it in the charter change packet. There was a lot of stuff in there, so I'm not sure whether the document is publicly available. I couldn't find it posted anywhere, and it's not in our packet, but I think because it was discussed in that public forum, we can discuss it tonight, and we'll just post it in the future, unless you know that it was posted somewhere.
My understanding is that they're posting all of these documents, so they may not have gotten to it yet, but they're actually creating an index because they have so many documents.
Okay, yeah, I went through like 147 pages and didn't see it, but again, because it was reviewed in a public meeting, I think it's fine for us to talk about it tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Seguino to maybe review the report and then get any commissioner comments.
Sure. So just to clarify for folks, I was asked to report to the Joint Committee on what was working and what was not working in terms of the role of the commission, and that's what that document does. I consulted former commissioners that had left the commission who had substantial experience, and I talked to, I think, almost all commissioners. So that document reflects the various views on what, sort of really educating the Joint Committee about the work of the commission and where some of the challenges were and some of the things that we've been able to do. The second step in that process is for us to, as a commission, develop a set of recommendations that we will make to the Joint Committee. So again, what I presented was historical. It represented historical thinking, not only what has happened, but a long view of the Commission's input on the role of the Commission that had been incorporated to the City Council resolution of 2020. So the work that really needs to be done now and there was a commitment that I made at the time that this would be done by July 6th for the Joint Committee. And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to meet that deadline, but there does need to be a process to basically develop a set of, package of recommendations that the Commission agrees with, and that actually would need to be voted on as a motion at a Commission meeting or a special meeting if we feel like we need to do that in advance of their next meeting, or our next meeting, I should say.
I think all commissioners have had a chance to review the report that Commissioner Seguino prepared. What we haven't had the chance to do is come up with our own proposal looking forward. So I don't know if people have ideas or suggestions for how we can do that. I see Commissioner Rao has her hand.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Seguino that I think we need to just, kind of go over the document. There's a chance that we have more consensus than anything else, but I think we have to do that publicly and sort of in an environment of borrowing Commissioner Cox's words, some amount of brainstorming. So I don't know if this is a motion, well, I'll make it a motion that perhaps we have a special meeting with one agenda item, which is the discussion of this document. And then with of course, the understanding that this document will include specific recommendations that the commission approves. So that's where I stand, a special meeting.
Any discussion on that motion? Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Commissioner Cox? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have agreed to a special meeting, probably in the month of July, to come up with our recommendations. And in the meantime, we all have continued to do our homework.
And one other addition that I will make sure, and I will talk to Mohammed, that we make that document publicly available, whether in board docs, whichever way, on the commission website. That will be done shortly. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this switch over to the new document system has us all a little bit confused, so. Thank you, Mohammed. The next item on the agenda is commendations, and I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Cox.
Okay, so this, the first one that is with respect to, it's incident number 4. It's on the May 1 through 14 report, where it was a high-risk motor vehicle stop of an attempted homicide suspect. And let me get, and it was a team, and I wanted to commend the entire team. And I'm hoping that you can identify the members of the team. But I did notice that when we received the note from Sarah Tim about the new video that she had posted regarding the ERU, that I emailed her and I said, "Oh, were they the ones that I saw here on the May 8th incident?" She ended up letting me know today, yes, that was the ERU. But so they were super professional. But so on this, what I just wanted to point out is one particular thing that I thought was very notable, which was, but I'll read what I've written. So an officer located a motor vehicle with an attempted homicide suspect, the passenger, and his suspected accomplice, who was the driver. Officers conducted a high-risk motor vehicle stop. At the commencement of the stop, numerous officers were present, all heavily armed. One officer called out, "I got command." Thereafter, all the other officers were quiet, allowing the command officer to call instructions to the suspects, unimpeded by other officers' voices. The command officer's instructions were clear, easily audible from a distance, but without any tension or anger evident in his voice. He ordered each person to exit the vehicle in turn, with their hands up and their backs to the officers, walking backwards slowly, finally kneeling. When the first suspect knelt, the command officer indicated to other officers to go forward to handcuff and pat down the suspect, and then walk the suspect back to be secured in a police cruiser. The process was repeated for the second suspect, and both suspects were compliant. So the result that I'm looking at is, of their actions was that the identification of a single command voice was crucial for communication with and successful apprehension of the suspects. Unlike many incidents as seen on the news and on videos available across social media, there was a complete absence of many officers chiming in with conflicting instructions, causing confusion and escalating the situation. The training of the team was evident in their adherence to the single command voice concept, which led to the successful conclusion of the incident. The team is commended for their professionalism and their utilization of the single command voice concept during a high-risk incident. So that was my observation.
Thank you for that. That's really terrific. And if you would do me the honor of forwarding that written to me, I'll make certain that that finds its way into their respective personnel folders.
Okay, thank you. And I was pleased to learn that that was the ERU because I learned that today after I'd already written this, and I was thinking, well, if that's the sort of training that they're getting, that bodes well for the safety of the entire community, because the more highly trained the police are, then the fewer mistakes are made. And so I'm going, great. Okay, so the other one I specifically wanted to read out was, and this one's a little bit tricky because it's a civilian person. So this was on the same incident report. It was number 6 on the report. And so if I may read this one again, is this too boring? Or is this exciting? Is everybody okay?
Go ahead, let's get it on.
Okay. This is regarding a civilian reporting party. So the civilian reporting party.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. So this is regarding a civilian reporting party. And again, I don't have his identity. I believe it was blocked out or snipped out of the body cam footage or somehow blocked, but I wasn't able to write it down. Anyway, so the civilian reporting party heard loud arguing and what he believed to be possible physical abuse or altercation from the building next door. From his window, he was able to determine that the noise was coming from above his location being on the first floor of his building. He could hear a dog barking and the sound of a small child in distress, in addition to the man and the woman. He immediately called 911, and while he was on the phone with the dispatcher, he walked quickly next door to determine the precise apartment from which the noise was emanating. He checked the second floor of the building, then went to the third floor and was able to identify the apartment where the altercation was occurring. He was able to hold his phone near the door of the suspect's apartment so that the dispatcher could confirm the sounds that the reporting party was hearing, and including the dog barking and the small child in distress. The dispatcher did hear everything and immediately sent officers to the location. So the reporting party waited outside the building where the altercation was occurring and directed the initial responding officers to the correct apartment. He continued to wait outside the building and helped additional officers. So as they came on scene, then he directed them into the building and told them which apartment to go to. He then waited across the street while the police arrested the suspect for impeding a police officer and resisting arrest. And then after the suspect was placed in the police cruiser, a police officer across the street went over, had a conversation with the reporting party, and took his statement. As a result of all of this, as a result of the actions of the civilian reporting party, the dispatcher was able to determine that the situation was immediate and possibly dire, and the police were able to respond to the scene quickly and go to the correct apartment without delay. The suspect was ultimately charged with second-degree aggravated domestic assault committed within the presence of a child, second-degree unlawful restraint, possession of cocaine, violation of an abuse prevention order, resisting arrest, and impeding a public officer. The woman and her 6-year-old daughter were voluntarily taken by the police to make a statement and press charges against the male suspect. Through his quick actions, the civilian reporting party upheld the highest traditions of looking out for our neighbors. His sustained assistance through the course of the incident was outstanding and minimized the chance of error by the responding officers. The civilian reporting party is commended. And one thing I wanted to ask is, I don't know what you do when there's a commendation actually of this type. This is really for a civilian person and not a member of the police department. But I was wondering if perhaps if you have some sort of a civilian certificate that you can give, or, you know, have lunch with Chief Murad Day, or, you know, something to just recognize and promote the fact that we all do need to look out for each other. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think anybody wants lunch with Chief Murad, but I do think that there is an opportunity for us to put this in the mix for our award ceremonies. We do give awards to members of the public for collaboration with or cooperation with the police department, or particular acts that are supportive of the department or of the community. And then there's usually one award per year, a coveted badge award, that's given to somebody who's sort of done an exemplary amount of work. So this would be a terrific example of that, and I'm glad you brought it to my attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. That was great. And Commissioner Rao, are there other commendations that you wanted to provide?
There are no other commendations for this month. So, well, thank you, Commissioner Cox.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is commissioner updates. Do commissioners have any updates? Commissioner Rao?
Yes, I have a couple of updates. First of all, Commissioner Oski and I have been working on the commission's bylaws, and we have a rough draft ready, and we plan to distribute it. Commissioner Oski, I don't know how you feel about this timeline, but perhaps by the end of July for us to consider as an agenda item for August. I don't know if you had a different timeline or not, but that's what I'm looking at as
That
far as
sounds
the
good.
bylaws. That sounds good.
good.
Okay, all right. So that's one update. The second update is Mohammed will be leaving us. This is his last meeting, and I wanted to thank him publicly as well for his work with the commission, especially his work on the website. I have not worked with him for very long, but for the short time that I've worked with him, I appreciate his cheerfulness, his collegiality, and his ability to smile through just about everything. I'm a smiler too, Mohammed, so I appreciate the joy that you have brought to us on your day-to-day interaction. So thank you for your work and your service. The third, oh, sorry, were you going to say something? I'm sorry, Mohammed.
Just saying thank you to you.
I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts, but I just have one other update. I cannot see if Commissioner Comerford is present or not. Is she? I can't see.
She is not here tonight.
She's not there. Okay. Commissioner Comerford had asked that we organize NPA, joint NPA Burlington Police Commission meetings moving forward. And we had agreed to organizing them in the future. And Mohammed had been spearheading that. But with the change in our staff, I think we will have to delay that a little bit and maybe have that going forward in the fall sometime, late fall rather than early fall. So those are my 3 updates for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioners that wish to provide updates? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next agenda item, which is executive session. And I'd like a motion to go into executive session to discuss confidential matters pursuant to 1 VSA 313 sub C7, which is personal documents relating to an individual, including information and any files maintained to hire, evaluate, promote, or discipline any employee of a public agency. After the executive session, we will adjourn. Commissioner Keefe moves.
Second.
Commissioner Rao seconds. And we're going to go into executive session.